Hi everybody. It's nice to be here and share some of our insights with you and with clients of the Launchpad Collective, as always. My name is Jessica, but you can call me Jess. Most people call me Jess, and I am one of the founders of Be People Group. Be People is a recruitment firm. We are based in London, but we work across lots of different countries, mostly across Europe and a little bit in the US. And we basically help people to get senior jobs, and we work with clients on senior opportunities for multiple different global businesses. And so we do have some insights and hopefully some guidance that we can try to offer in terms of how to prepare for interviews. I do want to mention that, of course, we're not experts on every single type of job and every single type of opportunity. So what we're sharing with you is just some general guidelines. It doesn't cover kind of all of the topics. Maybe some of these things you already know or might seem quite obvious, but these are what we would generally prepare our own clients and candidates with in our recruitment processes. Of course, there might be a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So if you had any more specific questions, you can let us know and we will try to answer those. I'm quite happy for everybody to have a copy of this presentation stack at the end of the presentation. So hopefully anything, if I speak too quickly or if you miss anything, you'll have a copy of all of this afterwards. So I'm going to take us through the first part of the presentation. I'm going to cover things like how we would approach company research, really understanding your own CV, and how your CV relates to the position that you are interviewing for, why motivation is important, and how to use the STAR method really effectively. I'm then going to pass over to my colleague Natalie, and Natalie is our Associate Director at Be People, and she will take you more through things like technological preparation, making sure you know who you are meeting, preparing questions, and then some pieces on language and communication and confidence generally. Okay. The main things I would look for is when you think of company research, I think sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming. Where to start looking? What are the key things you might need to know before interviewing? I would generally suggest looking at their website and a couple of spots on their website where you will pick up some key information. I would be hoping that you would come away with really understanding who is the organization, who is the business, what do they do, what are they like to work for, what is their culture or their the qualities of the business, and really trying to find something that connects with you or something that you really like about that business or that particular opportunity. And this is important because it truly shows your interest in that particular organization or charity or business. It shows that you can understand them. It shows that you can do the research and that you are organized and you're prepared. And it can also help you to find some individuality in the reason why you're interested, to make you stand out against other candidates that might also be applying. So if you look at the bottom of this screen, I've just taken a few screenshots to hopefully help. The top one here is a people officer role. So it's just a very junior HR role at a company called Fauna and Flora. This particular shot is just a screenshot of the job on LinkedIn as the job title. I then went on the company page, straight onto the company website of Fauna and Flora. Generally, every website, as you might have noticed, has a similar setup. So as you can see on this image, right at the top banner of the company page, they'll always have similar drop-down menus. So what we do, in this case, they have news and insights, who we are, contact, careers pages. If you have the time, I would suggest looking for as much as possible. If you don't have as much time or you feel too overwhelmed, the two pieces I would pay attention to are what we do and who we are. What we do is important because it shows you how the company makes money, or what type of product that they sell, or what type of service that they offer, or if it's a non-profit, what are they trying to help? Who are they trying to help? It helps you understand what the business does. And who we are is important because it tells you what it's like to work for the organization, what type of people are in their business, what are their values, and why is that important to you. So when I pulled up the what we do category, it came up with something like their impact, their projects, their areas of expertise. I would definitely look into all of these things. And then who we are, our people, sometimes it might say about us, and their careers pages. Sometimes you have to explore a little bit because they can have videos from employees talking about what they really like about their job, what they really like about their company. So these are really good things that you can use in an interview. If they were to ask you, why are you interested in our business? You've had a good look and you've picked 2 or 3 reasons why this job and this company feels like it could be really good for you. I've also saved the link here if anybody receives a copy of this. So you can click on it to see their actual people page, because this company has a good one. And it also has links to their people who are connected with this organization, which is about the environment. So a good example would be if I was interviewing for Fauna and Flora and they asked me, let's say I was interviewing for an environmental job, and they asked me why I was interested, I could say, I could talk about my passion for the environment. I could say that I went on their website and I saw that one of their partnerships was with Sir David Attenborough. I'm a huge fan of David. I would love to be connected to any organization that he has influence with. So I will be super excited to work with you. So any little bit of information that can really resonate with you is important to make a note of. And this is very good preparation. And it will hopefully make you stand out from other candidates. So really, just to summarize, the aim of this research is to explore what can create connection or links between what the organization does and your own skills and your own motivations. And then also create links between the culture of the business, what you can see about the people, what you can see about the qualities that they list on their website, and what that means for you and why that would interest you as a business or a charity. The next stage for me, this sounds quite obvious, but it's not. So I think in this age of AI, a lot of people are using, ChatGPT or Google Gemini, or organizations or recruiters like ourselves to help you to write your CV. Some people say CV and some say resume. It's the same thing, but I'm going to use the word CV. I think it's really important, if you've had help to write your CV, that you feel confident and you know what is written on your CV document. So if you've written it via ChatGPT or AI, or you've had help writing it, that's great. These tools are awesome for helping with good CV writing. But it is really important that you can understand your own experience, what is written on your CV, and how to talk about it confidently. Because it's very likely you are going to be asked questions based on your CV, or you're going to be asked to talk about your background. And so it's important that before you interview, just have a quick check, make sure you know what's written on there, and that you feel these are points that you can speak confidently about. The second thing, which a lot of people don't do, is to go back and read the job description. So I know if you're really actively searching for a role, you can click apply to a lot of jobs, and sometimes you can lose track of which one you're interviewing for and which job that you're applying to. So before you interview, it's really important that you go back and check the job description again. And you should pay particular attention to 2 aspects of the job description, or the JD, as we call it. One is the role responsibilities, and the other is the skill set that they are requiring for the job. So I would myself have a notepad or a pen, and I would go through the skills that they are asking for and how my CV lines up to those skill sets. And I would look at the role responsibilities and again, why this would make sense for me and my CV and my experience. And this should help you to kind of link the things together. So I've understood my CV, I've understood your job description, I've done my company research. And with all of these things, I can really link my own experiences to what I think it is that you are looking for. I do want to add that it's totally okay not to have every single thing that they are looking for on the job description. So they might list 10 items of skills that they are requiring. You might have 7, and 3 maybe you don't feel like you have yet. This is okay. What I would do is just make a mental note of the ones that you don't think you have and be able to confidently talk about, okay, let's have an example. If it said you have to have management experience for this role, you could say, I don't have management experience yet, but I do think that I have really good experience that would enable me to take on a management role. This is because as you'll see from my CV, in my last job, I was mentoring junior people within the organization. I was always given feedback that I was very helpful to the team, and people would come to me for advice, and I would help to better other people's skills within the team. So I feel like I'm ready for my next management step, even though I don't yet today have this type of experience. So it's okay to have a gap in your knowledge or your expertise, but just be able to explain why you think you would still be suitable for the role, or how quickly and how motivated you would be to learn these new things, as quickly as you can. All of this research should really help you to come to a point where you really understand yourself in your job search and what motivates you. So when the clients or the interviewer ask you questions, which they will, about why are you interested in this job, or why are you interested in our company or organization or charity, it's much more helpful if you've done this level of research to be able to answer this in a way that will help you to stand out from other candidates on the market. If you haven't done any research, it's quite difficult to answer this in a way that the person would find impressive. So if I were to ask you, why are you interested in this job? And you were to say, oh, I thought it was a good match for my CV and it seems quite interesting. Okay. But because you've done the research on the company and you've looked at the people and you know your CV and you've really read through the job description, and then if they said, why are you interested in our company? You would be able to say, well, this feels like a really good opportunity for me because I'm very passionate about this. And I've looked on your company and I can see that you're doing this, or that people are saying this about your business, or I really like the values that you list on your homepage. This connects with what I think a good business looks like, and this is why I would be interested to work with you. And I think this type of response really stands out from a lot of candidates who don't tend to do research like this. And it really doesn't take that long. So it's not super time consuming. And once you start to do it as a habit, you can quite quickly prepare for an interview in many different types of companies. Okay, and finally with me, I just want to go through the STAR method. The STAR method is not new. Some of you might have used it or know about it already. If it's new, I'm going to introduce it. If you already know about it, it's always good to revisit it and keep practicing using it because it's really, really good. So I think the STAR method is used best when responding to a competency question. When I say competency question, these are a bit different. So it's not when the client asks you, why would you like to work with us? Or can you explain your background to us? These are just general questions. Generally, when they are asking you a competency question, it's because they want an example. They want to ask you, how have you done this? When have you done this? Can you give us an example of? And this is when the STAR method is really useful. So the types of questions they might ask are things like, can you tell us a time when you've worked with other people to achieve something? So worked as a team to achieve something. Can you tell me about an achievement you are really proud of? Can you think of a time when communication skills have improved a situation? Or if you were assigned multiple projects with really tight deadlines, where would you start or how would you prioritize them? And this way you can use the STAR method really effectively. So STAR stands for situation. So what was happening? Take us to the beginning. What was going on? And then T is for task. So what did you have to do in that situation? And then we move to the action. So you know what you had to do, but what did you actually do? Can you talk us through what you did? And then the result is what happened in the end. So what was the impact or what was the learning? And it's really quite important because if you were to answer one of these questions, so let's say question 3, can you think of a time when communication skills improved the situation? If you were to answer this without the STAR method, it could look something like this. So a weaker answer would be, I'm a good communicator and I like helping customers. One time a customer was angry and I spoke with them and I solved the problem. I always try to be polite and professional in my work. This is an okay answer, but it's very based on opinion. So I am a good communicator is an opinion. I spoke to them and solved the problem. There's no evidence there's no story of what you're talking about here. So when you use the STAR method, what you're doing is you're telling a story to give evidence of why you have this type of experience. So a STAR response could look something like this. In my previous job, a customer came to the counter upset because they received the wrong product. This is the situation. The task was that I had to understand the problem and help them whilst keeping the situation very calm. What I did was I listened carefully, I stayed polite and apologized to them for the mistake. I did ask some questions to understand what happened and explained how I could replace the item immediately. And the result of this was that the customer became much calmer. They did accept the replacement product and they thanked me for helping. And then my manager said that I handled it very well later. So hopefully you can see that this is a much stronger outcome and hopefully will help you stand out from other candidates in the process. So just in summary on my side, research is super important because if you look at the company, you look at what the company does, you know how they do it, you know why they do it. You've looked into the people, the culture, what it says about them online, and how that connects to why you're interested in that business. And then you're able to answer some of these competency questions very effectively. I think you will have a very, very good chance at interview of moving to the next stage. I hope this has been helpful, but of course, if you have any questions on my side of things, I'm happy to take those at the end. But I'm going to pass over to my colleague Natalie for the next part of the process.
Hi. Hi, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Perfect. It's really nice to see so many people attending this session this evening. It's really nice to meet you all. I am an associate director at BP, I just already kindly mentioned. The next phase of this interview presentation is really focusing on technical skills. So it's people you'll be meeting with and why this is so important to constantly just keep doing research on those important topics. So as the slide's currently showing us on technical preparations, I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes here, as much as it is important to look into the company, organization, the job description, it's also important to make sure you come prepared. And I would say this is one of the very first things you should do. So it's basic things we think is absolutely fine, but it's nothing worse than attending an interview only to realize, oh my goodness, my camera's not working. working. The lighting in the room I'm attending this interview with is not great. So a couple of things I want to start with is absolutely always test your camera. If it's going to be a meeting via Teams or Zoom, it's most likely going to be requested to have a camera on. And as I said, good lighting always help. If you're sitting in a dark room, basic things like opening the curtains, the blinds, switch on the lights. Other times it could be the opposite. If the sun's coming through a window, close that blind, close the window, and make sure the lighting is really good. The second thing I want to focus on is good posture. You'd be surprised how many candidates come to interviews with very poor posture. And I genuinely do think first impression counts. You know, lying on your back, holding a phone up, interviewing, or holding the phone in your hand, very unstable, does create a first image. It does also become quite a bit of a distraction to the person that is interviewing. So I would say get a comfortable chair, get good posture, sit upright, and really stay engaged in the conversation. A bit of what we're all doing this evening. I would also then suggest to always ensure the platforms are ready. You've got so many different platforms nowadays. This is a Zoom meeting, but if it is via Teams or Google Meet, again, do the same basic concepts like test the microphone, test the camera, make sure you've got the latest platform installed for your meeting. Super important one, and something we very often forget, is a private room or a quiet space. Ideally, not somewhere where the dog is barking, or in my case, the cat is meowing, or the neighbor is overheard, or in a noisy communal area. This is super important because it does become a distraction, not just for yourself, but the person who you're interviewing with. Stable internet connection. Look, this could be so unpredictable. We all could have a bad day sitting in a communal workspace with not the best internet. I would say this is something that is super important for an interview. If the interview is going to be interrupted constantly due to bad connection, it's absolutely a waste of your time. It's a waste of the interviewer's time. So do a little test on all of those things, including that stable internet connection. And then if you're a bit like myself, I like to come prepared. That means to show up a little bit early. So today for this recording, I think I showed up 6 minutes early, and Kateva said, hi, you are early, but it's not a bad thing. It's just to see, is the level I'm sitting at the right level? Is my microphone working? Is the video working? And it just gives you a bit of a couple of minutes just to take a breather and feel a bit calm when you enter the interview. I would say always have a backup plan. Something I did not write on this presentation is to maybe have a charger to hand. If your laptop or your PC does run on low battery, it's always good to have that backup. Worst case scenario, you could always switch to plan B, which could be your mobile phone. In the UK, preferably that's not preferred, but if it's your only way to interview, then please make sure it's at least on a stable area somewhere on your desk where it's not moving around as you speak. Can we please move on to the next? As much, again, as it is important where the job description, skill set is, etc., it is important to really go and do a bit of research on who you're meeting. I think we all tend to feel a little bit excited if you get that email coming through to say, hey, Natalie, you've been invited to this company for a first stage interview, and you'll be meeting with A, B, and C for this role. It's a great feeling. This means your application's been approved and you're moving forward in the recruitment process. Again, please do a little bit of research. As Jess mentioned, it doesn't take a long time, but it genuinely is going to be beneficial later on in the recruitment process. The first couple of things you could look at is you already know the date, the time, probably the location you need to be at for this interview. Now we want to see who are you meeting. Very often it is a HR manager, if it's a first stage interview, or you meeting directly with the hiring manager as the first stage interview. So I think that's really important to go and see. Let's use Jessica as an example in this case scenario. She's going to be on the interview panel. She is the client, and I've been invited to go and meet with Jessica. So the first thing I would do is use LinkedIn. Jump on LinkedIn. I mean, you could try Facebook, but don't go that deep. It's personal. Let's try and stick to LinkedIn. Find Jessica, see what is her official job title. I can see on this page that she's one of the co-founders and directors of inclusive search at Be People. That's great to know. So now at least I know what Jessica does. She's going to be focusing on HR on the search side of the business. Other times it's the technical manager. Again, type in their name into LinkedIn, get their official job title, and have a little look at their history and background to date. There's lots of information LinkedIn does show us. Sometimes things we don't think of to have a little look at is things like, are this person posting often? Not just jobs, but are they posting about the company culture? Have they attended an event more recently? Or in Jessica's case, it's actually where she is a co-founder and a partner and part of the Be Continued podcast, which is a series of podcasts, 12 of them, where she's interviewing with senior chief people officers on various different interesting topics. And this is something we can relate, especially if it relates to you and it has a similar interest to you, a thing like a podcast. It's always good to reference these type of things. And then another screenshot I've put in there is just some recommendations. I think it's a bit like going to a restaurant. I do like a good analogy. And just to read the reviews on that restaurant. What are people saying? Is it a good restaurant? Was it good service? Was it good food? But let's focus this time on Jessica and her LinkedIn recommendations. There you could see there's a couple of recommendations of people in the market who really value Jessica's service, where she added value. And it's nice to see those type of recommendations also. The reasons these things are important, I'll go very quickly over that, is just to know exactly who you're interviewing. Is it HR? Is it the technical manager? This would make you probably a bit more prepared in preparation of tailoring your answers. So, for example, if you are meeting with HR, they probably want to focus on things like culture fit, learning agility, your years of experience in the role, as where a technical hiring manager would be more interested in, can you do the technical skills aspect of the job? So there they would be focusing again more on what impact you've had, what's the achievements, did you bring data-driven examples? Those are and obviously related to the role. So again, you could be a little bit more prepared if you know who you'll be meeting. I already spoke about building rapport. Again, similar things like mentioning the podcast or the great recommendations. And this also allows you to go in and predict how the conversation is going to go a little bit. If it is, again, just HR, it's very much talking about the business. HR tends to sell the company brand, the product, the people, the leadership team. So you could go in a bit more prepared with those type of examples, because you know this time you're not going to talk about technical skill set, and you don't have to focus during this interview on technical examples that you would bring. Overall, I just said it's definitely going to boost confidence, because once we go in and we feel a bit more familiar with something, it just takes away anxiety, and it definitely improves performance during a recruitment process. Can we go on to the next one? Preparing questions, definitely. As Jess said earlier, I love that because it's a bit old school, but it works. Is grab a pen, grab some paper. Now you're doing a bit of research on this company. Come with a couple of questions. I'm pretty sure people will have questions for us today. And it's important to bring questions. The reason I said, why is this important? Because it certainly shows interest in the role specifically you're talking about. There is normally time allowed in any interview process, no matter what role, where, and when you're interviewing for, where there will be a couple of minutes to ask some questions and answers. I would say you be the judge of that. Sometimes you've got 1 minute, so come with one quick question, one smart question. Sometimes there is 10 minutes left of your interview to come with questions. That's where I normally say come prepared with 1 or 2 questions. So some type of questions we could probably ask the interviewee, no matter if it's HR or the technical manager, who's sometimes the hiring manager. You could ask them questions like, how do you measure success in this role? That means really, what are they looking for in this person to be successful in the role? I think sometimes we apply to these positions, we think we meet 70 or 80% of the skill set. So obviously they're going to like your profile, they're going to invite you for interview, but what does success look like? And on top of that, you could even add things like saying, what does success look like short to midterm or mid to long term? Another question I would ask is, what do you enjoy most about working here? This is a brilliant opportunity for you to get some insights into why people is working in this company. What do they value? It speaks volumes about the company culture. Also, because very often it would be, as much as we work hard, we're very actively involved in social projects and social events. And this is why I enjoy working here. So it gives you a bit more of a flavor outside of the actual day-to-day job and the technical skill set you're requiring. And then a fair question, I think, is what are next steps in the interview process? Those are smart, common first stage interview questions to ask, rather than questions like, what would this job pay me? What should I wear to work? Or is there many candidates in the interview process? Do I have competition? So I think by that stage, you don't need to ask those type of questions. Go in with some smart questions. That's me on questions. Now, I don't know if many of you could pick up that I have a slight accent. I am not British. I'm not from the UK. I must admit, this is my 20th year living in the UK. So many I meet for the first time would say, but oh, Natalie, you do sound British. Jess would laugh and say that's not true. She does have an accent. So originally I am from Cape Town in South Africa, if anyone didn't guess that. Which mean I came at the very young age of 23 to the UK. Bearing in mind, I could not speak a word English. Now, I know some of you might think that's not true, but it absolutely is. And there was lots of things that I soon realized, if I want to do well for myself in this country, I'm really going to have to practice my English, especially if I was looking for my first time position, my first time job. And as much as I had to personally go and do that, it is super important that language and communication reassurance in any job application is fit for purpose. So I can go in afterwards. There's a couple of things I personally did. I'm not saying you should do it, but just a few tips that worked for me. But I think during any interview process, just remember a couple of things. When the conversation flow is going well, because the clients introduced the business, they told you about the role, and it's getting to that question, answer piece. I think if the client asked you a question and all of a sudden, you couldn't hear the question properly, or there was maybe a terminology being used that you're unsure of, or you're just not sure what the question is, I think it's okay to pause and think for a minute. It's absolutely normal. If it was the case scenario where you didn't understand the question or you didn't hear the question, it's always good to say that they repeat that question. So, for example, if we look at this one together, you could just say something along the lines like, sorry, could you please... No, I'll take that back. Don't say sorry. Just go straight in and say, could you please repeat that question one more time? And nothing else. Now it would force your client to actually come in again with that question, and I promise you most clients would be more than happy to repeat that question one more time. I think in fact it's quite smart and attractive to ask questions rather than just guessing a question. So one of my bullet points at the end is, do not just assume that you understood the question. Please say you didn't and ask the question again. It's absolutely fine. And then finally, I think in the end of the day, what you want to do when you interview with any client is to feel confident and go in with the right mindset. So a couple of things I just wrote down. What's good to remember is, I think, managing nerves. If you go in prepared, you won't feel as nervous as possible or at all. I wrote there, nervous energy equals adrenaline. I'm pretty sure we all have these day-to-day examples where we were feeling a lot of nervous energy that was the equivalent of adrenaline. And once we feel like this, it's just a bad recipe to happen. So I think what we could say to ourselves after this session is, let's channel ourselves into enthusiasm rather than fear. In the end of the day, Jessica was the one who told me this a couple of years ago. It's just somebody's uncle or somebody's sister or somebody's brother you're interviewing with. See it as this. There's no reason to feel that nervous. And then tell yourself, I am super excited to share my experience with this client, and do show that during the interview process. Remember, interviews are always a two-way conversation. Sometimes it could feel like you're doing all the selling and all the talking and all the convincing. But in the end of the day, make sure you do get great value from your first, second, final interview, asking smart questions, going in prepared, because in the end of the day, it is that two-way conversation. And clients are not expecting you to know everything. So it is really okay not to know everything. And remember, I was a bit nervous presenting this presentation because I don't do presentations every day, believe it or not. But what I'm trying to say is, let's take this as a keynote to take home. It's okay to feel nervous in interviews, because if you were sitting and doing interviews all day, you would be an expert. And no client wants to hire somebody who's doing interviews all day with other clients. I hope that made sense. That actually brings me to the end of this presentation and our final slideshow. I'm just conscious of time, but thank you very much, everyone, for attending this talk today.